The True Ambition podcast with John Zink is brought to you by IT Avalon. IT Avalon, IT staffing and professional services done right. Visit our sponsor at itavalon.com. Now, welcome to True Ambition.
Everybody, welcome to the True Ambition podcast. My name is John Zink, and I'm honored to be joined today by Mr. Eric Smith. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for reaching out.
You bet. 2020 is gone.
In the past, in the
out of here. Thank God.
Let's move on. Let's forget it.
So Eric is the director of operations at Formfactor. You in what's it? Dublin? Is that
in Livermore?
In Livermore.
Livermore, yeah.
Okay. U.S. Navy veteran.
That's right.
Thank you so much for your service.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And born in Seattle, Washington, and lives in Livermore, California.
That's right.
His wife is a beautiful lady named Maria.
Absolutely.
Kids, he's got Sean, who is 17, Isabel, 16, and Scarlett, who is 7. And they got a 3-year-old dog named Scout.
That's right.
And in-house, you've got mother-in-law.
Yep.
You got a busy household going on.
Yep, absolutely.
So the way that you and I met is I actually worked with Maria, your wife, for years, and you and I met on a few different occasions at different restaurants and bars and work events and that kind of stuff. So we talked about Sean for a second. He's a quarterback at Livermore High School, right?
Yep, that's right.
I follow him on Facebook probably following Maria's posts all over the place as a proud mom. Yeah. So what's it like in COVID for someone who is, a local sports star? Is he looking at colleges, or are colleges looking at him?
Yeah, he's looking, they're looking. It's tough because he's losing his senior year.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a pretty big bummer. But, the good thing is he performed at a pretty high level last year, his first year starting at the varsity level, and got some good performance on film and got recognized. So we've been able to go to camps and showcases and things like that, so he can still get out there and get some reps and show what he's got. And it's not the same as getting out on the field and playing real tackle football and trying to compete for a championship for Livermore and all that we had hoped would happen this year. But he's still excited. He wants to play at the next level. He's got 2 formal offers from a couple of schools so far, and he's applied and got accepted to some other schools where he has options. He may take an offer and go play at a smaller school, or he may go to a big school and walk on and see and compete. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's got to suck.
It's
senior in high school, you're the quarterback. Oh my God, I put a Facebook message up or something, or sent a message to Maria a while back. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be the worst thing for Sean ever.
Yeah, it's a bummer. It's a real bummer. I mean, not only losing the actual football season, but I mean, just going to school. He's losing the social interaction and doing everything by Zoom and all that is, it's in some ways, maybe it's preparing him a little bit for kind of, managing his own time and being on his own, when he goes off to college and all that, because it's a little different. But at the same time, I mean, just missing out on that senior year of high school, that's a major year in most people's lives,
Yeah.
So it's a bummer. It's amazing though. I mean, him and my other daughter, all of them, they're kind of taking it. I think it's harder on the parents than it is on them. I mean, kids adapt so easily. They're good with the technology. He's still, leading workouts with his buddies and lifting and all those kind of things that you got to do to stay prepared. So he's, not just sitting in his room all day, but it's a pretty big bummer.
Yeah. So how did they do last year in his junior year?
They did well. So it was the best season they've had in, I want to say 15 to 20 years. We haven't been in Livermore, definitely as long as we've been in Livermore. This was the best that Livermore High had done. They went to the playoffs, lost in the first round of the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, this, not just Sean, but this whole group of kids that he has, that his senior class, they've been coming up playing football together in the youth levels, and then, now through freshman and JV and now varsity. And it's been a really talented, hardworking group of boys that all of us coaches and, parents have kind of been waiting for this group to get to the varsity level. And, kind of known for a while it would be the best chance Livermore's had in a long time. And they did well last year. And the thought was this year, it was like the year Livermore could actually compete in the East Bay Athletic League.
Right.
So, we hopefully still get to see that. I don't know. I mean, I'm sounding pretty pessimistic at this point because it's way past when the season would have already ended. But there is still a chance that we're going to kick this thing off in January. And, we're all praying and crossing our fingers and hoping that's going to happen. So we'll see.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Hey, COVID sucks.
It sucks, man. It sucks.
So how are you kind of talked about it for a second, but how are the kids dealing with the distance learning? I know I've talked to some people that said, oh, no problem at all. I've talked to other people that my kid is just not dealing with it at all and like failing out of all studies. So how are your kids kind of dealing with the social distance learning?
Yeah, I mean, each one of them a little bit different. Luckily, none of them are failing, or their grades haven't dropped off because of it, which is great. But definitely, I think it's hard to stay focused on the class, the meeting, whatever you want to call it. They've got other distracting. I hear from Sean's teacher that he's looking at his phone a lot during the class or whatever, and
I can imagine. I turn off my phone to do this podcast, and like when I'm going out for a sales meeting or something, I just leave it behind, because as soon as I get distracted, even if I have it on vibrate, I'm like, oh God, I got to reach for it.
Right.
So I can only imagine what it's like for a high school kid. Yeah. Because that might be a girl.
Well, even before this COVID stuff, this generation, these high school kids, it's like, so much of their social interaction is on social media. There's so many different platforms they're on. And so, they're constantly interacting with their phone. And now that, they're locked down and they're trying to maintain these social bubbles and not go out and mix in the real physical world, it's even more kind of, important. Like everything they get is through their phone right now. So yeah, it's a distraction. And, but like I said, he's powered through it. He's got a 3.7 GPA. He's doing well. My daughter, Isabel, she's got a 4.4 GPA. She's taken 4 AP classes and as a junior, and she's really kicking butt.
Brainiac.
Yeah. And beautiful too. And so, I mean, who knows what she's going to do in life. A lot of great things, I think. The younger one, Scarlett, probably struggles the most. Is keeping a 7-year-old in front of the computer for hours is tough. Luckily the schools are very flexible. They kind of do 20 minutes, then a 20-minute break, 20 minutes. It's kind of, they give them a lot of breaks and a lot of freedom. But when I'm working from home or whatever in the morning and she's on, I feel for that teacher. You just hear her constantly, can you please sit down, Bobby? No, Bobby, over here, please. Like she's just constantly kind of, calling out kids who are getting distracted or doing whatever. So, it must be really tough on the teachers to manage this right now. I can't imagine.
Well, kids at that age, I would expect that a teacher physically in front of the kids, it's almost like herding cats.
Right. Yeah.
Doing it over a Zoom meeting, forget about it.
Exactly.
So when I worked with your wife, Maria, we worked in IT staffing, which I'm still in. Mm-hmm. She went to school to be a nurse, right?
That's right.
So is she working with like COVID patients right now? What kind of nursing does she do?
So she's a LVN and she's still going to school to be an RN. She works at a kind of a assisted living facility that has a skilled nursing facility at the kind of old folks home. It's a pretty high end place. They've kind of got, apartments and, they're on site nursing. And so she isn't dealing directly with COVID patients, but obviously those kind of assisted living facilities are some of the hardest hit in, of all types of places, since COVID started. So they've been extremely cautious, a lot of protocol, and they check in testing daily almost. They've been really lucky. I think they've done not just lucky. I mean, I think they've done a great job to keep it out. I mean, they haven't had a major outbreak. I think just recently was the first time that they had a few infections, and they were, it didn't go widespread through the facility. But yeah, she's on the front line still, and in a place where it's high risk, and so I'm kind of always a little concerned. I'm going into work, almost every day, and so I kind of have to monitor what's going on with her. Has she been exposed, or is she at risk? So I can kind of judge, should I go into work and that kind of stuff. It's a tricky thing right now, but she's loving it. I mean, this is what she was meant to do. She, ever since I met her, I think she wanted to be a nurse, and, I just super proud of her for she was, going to school, doing online classes, homework all the time, tests, just working her butt off, as a full-time mom, working full-time and going to school, to kind of, go fulfill her dream. I mean, you should have her on this podcast. She has a ton of ambition, she really worked hard to get there, and, she's doing what she always wanted to do. I think her ultimate goal is to be in labor and delivery, because she just wants to be around, babies and moms and all that kind of stuff. And so, got a little bit of school left to get the RN degree, and then hopefully she'll be able to go and take that next step.
That's great. It's a great place for her. Just knowing her as a coworker and a friend. I mean, she's one of the most caring people I know, and she's so much fun too. She got that infectious laugh. Yeah. But we have my wife Carissa and I lived next door to a friend of ours, Celeste, who's a NICU nurse. Mm-hmm. And my hats are off to them, because when our son Johnny is 2 years old now, he was in the NICU for about 6 hours after he was born. For something, they were just monitoring him. But I saw some of those parents in there that were dealing with real issues. Yeah. There was one family that was in there for, I think he said 6 months. Wow. And the kid was born at like under 2 pounds or something like that. But these nurses, the things that they deal with every day and the heartbreak they have to go through, it takes a whole different type of person to go and do that kind of thing. And, it's amazing, and we need them so much. Yep. So did you grow up in Seattle proper? Were you in a suburb or downtown Seattle? Where were you?
No, yeah, in the city, right in the city. Not really downtown, but a neighborhood called Ballard that's kind of in northwest Seattle. Kind of a large Scandinavian sort of population in that part of town, which, on my mom's side, we're from Iceland, so kind of a lot of Swedish and Icelandic.
Well, you should be a Vikings fan then. You should be a Vikings fan. Yeah. I know you're a Seahawks fan.
I'm a big Seahawks fan. It's gonna be hard to kick that one, but yeah, no, it was, I'm a city boy. I grew up in the city. Went to Seattle public schools, and I think a lot of people who have never been to Seattle kind of think of it as like maybe not that big of a city. It's kind of that, way up there. Nobody ever gets up there. They just think it's kind of a small place, but it's a pretty big city. I mean, we had 10 public high schools and a few other private schools. So it's a fairly large city.
So I'm into a lot of the Seattle music. So did you ever see any of the bands locally there, like the Pearl Jams, some of the Soundgarden, any of those bands back in the day?
So I never saw any of those bands live at a concert, but I was in middle school and early high school when kind of those bands were really coming on the scene, and so funny story actually, a guy I went to high school with, his sister was dating the drummer from Soundgarden, and so he would always go party at their house. They had kind of just made a lot of money, and it was kind of when they were.
She was dating Matt Cameron.
Yeah, so it was like I didn't even know his name, but you're right. Yeah, if that's his name, then yeah.
Now he's the drummer for Pearl Jam.
Okay.
So he's like he's been in Soundgarden, Pearl Jam. Yeah. He's an amazing drummer.
Yeah, so I mean, it was it was kind of a fun time to come up, grow up in Seattle with the whole grunge thing kicking off, and Kurt Cobain. I remember the day that he passed, and everyone went out to his house, and we were all kind of gathered around out there and stuff like that, and you know, it was trying to think of who from Seattle I actually have seen in concert. I mean, I've been to a lot of concerts, but I don't know if I've ever actually seen a Seattle, you know, native Seattleite in concert. So
I just watched. There was a documentary called Hype. That's all about all of the hype that went into the Seattle grunge. They didn't. Most of the bands didn't even like being called grunge,
right?
Because they're like, no, we're just a band, and we're wearing flannel because it's cold up here.
Yeah,
you know,
we're in our garage. It's cold. There's nothing. Yep.
But that was a lot of them. A lot of the bands from up there were like, no, we're just a rock and roll band, and we just happen to be from Seattle. And then when Sub Pop kind of took over and started running the machine from up there, all of them just kind of got lumped into one spot, and that documentary Hype was pretty cool to watch because it's just kind of all of those bands from up there making fun of popular culture on how they all picked up on it.
Right. Yeah. No, and it was interesting. I mean, it definitely kicked off sort of a revolution in music and steered rock in a certain direction, but it wasn't. But if you think about grunge, it was kind of a short-lived thing, and it kind of probably for that reason they didn't want to really. Once you put a name to it, they're like, I'm not into that anymore. You know, you know, it's just music, bro. And but no, one of my best friends is a musician that I grew up with. He's a drummer, learned guitar. He's a producer now, and you know, so he's actually still there, kind of working with a lot of up and coming Seattle artists, and it's cool to see stuff that he's putting together from time to time. So
you know me, I love music, man.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's such an interesting world now with all the different avenues to get your music out there. You know, yourself. You know, so you can produce it yourself, record it yourself, distribute it yourself, and it's such a different world now. So it's exciting to. Talk to all those folks. So what year did you graduate from high school?
98.
Okay.
Yep.
And were you a good student?
Not really. Honestly, you know, I was a little less concerned with being a good student, more concerned where the party was at and things like that in high school, which, you know, I look back on and regret a little bit. But, you know, it's the cool thing is having kids now going through it. They're just so much better than I was, you know, both as a student and not getting into the temptations that were there. You know, Seattle in the 90s, it was a fun place to be, you know, but, you know, I ended up, I could have been a good student. You know, I was smart enough, I think, you know, but I didn't work hard. It kind of was after high school where I really learned how to work harder and what I was capable of and things like that.
Yeah, I was a horrible student. I've said it before. I had to actually beg one of my teachers to let me out. You know, one of those things where it's like, I don't want to come back and you don't want me back, so let's figure something out here. But same as you, I wasn't ready. I wasn't motivated. I think the real world had to slap me in the face a little bit to actually find that motivation.
Right.
So I'm there with you on that. So you went into the Navy right out of high school, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I did get a job for about 6 months, kind of while I was waiting to head off to boot camp.
What were you doing? What was the job?
It was working in an electronics manufacturing place, actually, doing building like amplifiers, equalizers, stuff that you probably use, you know, making a podcast like this. So, you know, the 7-second delay machines for radio stations and stuff like that. My buddy worked there, and he basically, you know, talked to his boss, said, hey, you know, this guy's going to be leaving in 6 months, so he's not going to be a long-term thing. But if, you know, we're busy, you know, can he come in? So I just came in and started working with them, and it was fun. It was a really cool job, great company, little small company called Symmetrics. I'm not even sure if they're still around, but great, you know, kind of first full-time working experience before I headed off to the Navy. And, you know, the Navy was kind of the option for me since I wasn't a great student. You know, it was kind of like I had always thought I would go to college, and then it was like all of a sudden I'm halfway through my senior year going, I don't have the grades, I don't have the money, I haven't even applied anywhere. You know, Navy's sounding pretty good, you know. And so
what made you choose the Navy?
Well, some of that, but I mean, it was also, you know, the Navy specifically over other branches. Well, it's a funny story. I actually had enlisted in the Army because I was kind of looking at it like this. I was going, you know, I don't really think I'm going to go and be in the military for 20 or 30 years. It wasn't really my goal. It was like, let me go and see the world, do something, learn a skill, you know, experience that, then go to college afterwards, right? That was kind of my goal. So I I thought, if that's what I'm going to do, if I'm going to go in for 3-4 years, something like that, and then go to school, like I want to actually be a soldier and do something really kind of, get out there and fight and all that stuff that sounds fun, right? When you're a 18-year-old kid.
Right.
And so I enlisted in the Army to be an Army Ranger. And so, that's special forces, and you go and do, jumping out of planes, airborne stuff. You do the frogman stuff. It sounded awesome. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a badass. I'm going to do a bunch of cool stuff, and then I'm going to get out. But then I met a guy, I think he was a friend of my mom's who was in the military, and he told me, he said, it does sound really fun, but once you get out there, it's not everything that, it looks like in the commercials. And honestly, if you want to, if your goal isn't to be a lifetime soldier, you should think about maybe doing something where you learn a skill set that you can apply in the real world. Because at Army Ranger, yeah, you're going to know how to shoot. You're going to know how to jump out of planes. You're going to know how to do a lot of things, but not very many of the things that you're going to know how to do will apply in the real world. So I thought a lot about that. And then I kind of at the last second told the Army guy, I think I'm going to back out of this. But as soon as I did, I walked right into the Navy office and said, what do you guys got for me? And they had a pretty cool program, the Navy Nuclear Propulsion Program, where you really learn how to, kind of everything about the ship's onboard power system and propulsion system on the nuclear aircraft carriers and submarines. You kind of get a well-rounded, mechanical, electrical, chemical, nuclear engineering type of education before you actually go out to your ship and apply it. So I was like, okay, this sounds more like something I can do afterwards, or at least something out of there I'll be able to take and apply in the real world afterwards. So I went and I did that. It was a great decision. I mean, amazing experience being in the Navy. I really highly recommend, military service to younger folks these days. And especially something, like submarine service or something where it's a kind of a close knit, group of guys that you work with. I think some of my best friends to this day are the guys I served with in the military. Just a great bonding experience. You learn so much. You can't fail. I mean, if you fail, you're not just failing yourself, you're failing your whole crew and everybody around you. So you really kind of learn how to sort of value those relationships and work hard for other people, not just yourself.
So what you were just talking about a submarine. You were stationed on a submarine, right?
That's right.
So what was the submarine?
The USS Topeka. So it's a fast attack Los Angeles class submarine.
And what's a Los Angeles class? What's that mean?
So so first of all, there's kind of two main types of submarines. There's what they call the fast attacks, which are a little smaller. They shoot torpedoes underwater and sometimes shoot missiles, but not nuclear missiles. Tomahawks, basically tomahawk missiles out of the ship. And then there's the boomers, or what they call the SSBNs. These ones are the ones that carry many nuclear warheads on board. Those ones are kind of more of just a deterrent, right? They're out there. We hope we never have to use them. It's kind of a silent threat to the rest of the world, saying, hey, you don't know if we've got 24 nuclear warheads parked off your coast right now, so don't mess with us. Right. You can hit the button at any minute, kind of a thing. We hope we don't have to, but we could.
Right.
The fast attacks are actually a little more agile. They, get into the tactical warfare, kind of go on more tactical missions to go and gain intelligence from a certain country and things like that. Los Angeles is just kind of one of the generations of the fast attack. So,
okay.
It's, I think, been around since the early 80s. I want to say is kind of when, and I might be off on that, but I think around there is when the Los Angeles class, kind of became the flagship, modern, fast attack submarine.
So are they, can you like go under radar when you're in these, or can people, can other adversaries see where you're at underwater in those submarines, or how does that work? So I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, that's kind of they call the submarine service the silent service, where it's very difficult to detect a U.S. submarine. I mean, it's all about staying quiet, right? So everything on the ship is tuned to not make noise. You know, if you have a little tick in your reduction gears, tick, 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 you know, that's a kind of a signal that can kind of go out into the water, and other people can hear that and know that that's not a natural sound. There's a boat out there somewhere, you know, and they can kind of hone in on that. And so it's they don't see you, but they can hear you. But you know, U.S. submarines are very silent, and you know, we're taught to not make a lot of noise on board. And so, you know, it's in kind of most other Navy ships, you're wearing your nicely shined boots and you're kind of all, you know, dressed up, looking good and all that kind of stuff. On a submarine, the only people that ever see you is the rest of your crew. We wear tennis shoes. We wear kind of like a mechanic's sort of, you know, we call it the poopy suit, you know, the coveralls that you sort of wear. We're a little less militarized when we're out there. It's more of a, you know, let's just be quiet and do our job kind of a thing. And, you know, you drop a wrench and that's like the biggest, you know, the biggest thing you can, you know, everyone comes around. What are you doing? You know, I mean, most of the time when we're out there, we're in a part of the ocean where, you know, we're not that worried about it. We're not really in a warlike situation. We're kind of maybe, you know, our radio men are kind of picking off a signal and we're kind of getting some intelligence from a country, you know, trying to communicate something like that. But, you know, if we go into some of those areas where we're, you know, not really supposed to be or something like that, that's when we have to get ultra quiet, and we kind of tune all of the motors on the pumps and everything to the right frequency to be completely silent. We go into ultra silent mode, that kind of a thing. And that's really how you would get detected, is if you make noise, or, you know, turn on the wrong pump or drop a wrench or, you know, something like that.
So when you're tuning them to the perfect, what do you say? Tuning them to the perfect frequency.
Yeah.
Does it depend on the frequency? Does it depend on how deep you are? Or does it just, once you go underwater, it's all the same no matter how deep you are underwater?
Yeah, I think it's all the same. I mean, basically what most submarines do is they go do sound trials. And there's a couple of underwater radio towers, basically, that, you know, they're just out there. You don't know about them, but there's these big radio towers underwater, almost like a goalpost in football or something. And the submarine just drives through them, you know, kind of turning off certain pumps, turning on certain equipment, turning off certain equipment, and driving through. And then that gets a real baseline of what your submarine sounds like in different conditions. And you kind of understand what every single, you know, running equipment, its underwater sound signature is. And then you kind of go and tweak and do maintenance and things like that to get it to where we're confident that we're silent. And we sort of have settings on some of the pumps that we can go into a kind of a silent setting, you know, and run it at that frequency that we know is the least detectable underwater. I don't think it matters much about the depth you're at, though.
That is so interesting. So the next question I had for you is, what is the longest amount of time that you were submerged?
Yeah, as far as I can remember, it was 53 days. I remember one period of time when we were under.
Can you imagine that? 53 days.
Yeah, 53 days underwater. You know, there was definitely longer periods of time just out at sea where, you know, we weren't pulling into port, but just without seeing without getting out and breathing the fresh air, that was the longest, I think. And I think even during that time, I can't remember if it was that time or another time. It kind of blends together now. But there was one time when we were under for a long time. And then and I think we were over in, you know, off the coast of China somewhere we weren't really supposed to be, you know, and somebody got sick and they actually had to medevac them off. So we kind of had to, you know, get out to where we're in international waters and could surface, and a helicopter came and took this guy off, before we could go back into the spec op mission that we were on. And since we were opening up the hatches, we surfaced, open up the hatches, get this guy off on a helicopter, the captain actually said, "Hey, anybody who wants to go stand under the hatch and look up at the sky can." Almost everybody got in line to go and stand under the hatch and look up, and oh, there it is, you know, try to get a breath of fresh air and then move on, you know, keep on. That was it. I mean, that's how kind of deprived you are of just the real life situation.
Oh, I can't even imagine. People talk about having cabin fever after being inside for a couple of days during a storm or during the winter or something like that up in Minnesota where I used to live. But being down for 53 days. So when you were talking about the air system, do you know how the air systems on those submarines work? I mean, how do they create the oxygen for you? Or is it huge oxygen tanks that are on there, or how do they do that?
Yeah, so we do have huge oxygen tanks, and we make our own oxygen on a submarine. So basically, you take the seawater in, you evaporate it off in a really large evaporator where you kind of boil off and pump the brine, pump the salt overboard, and take the fresh water and put it through kind of a set of filters, and then that fresh water goes through an electrolysis machine that's basically just pumping a lot of electricity through these coils, and then you're running the water. Now it's not like water and electricity meeting and that kind of thing, but you're basically atomizing the water molecule to the point where you're cracking it. The oxygen and the hydrogen separate, and we would just basically pump the hydrogen overboard and pump the oxygen into these tanks, keep those filled up, and then you just bleed it out, kind of constantly into the people spaces. And then there's, CO2 scrubbers. All the carbon monoxide that we're breathing out has to go through scrubbers to get that back out of the atmosphere. So it's a pretty complex, system for kind of maintaining that habitat, that we want on there, And a funny thing about oxygen, I mean, you see like in football games and stuff, the guys like run and then they put the mask on or whatever. And, getting a little bit of extra oxygen can pump you up a lot, and so, our normal atmosphere is like 19-20% oxygen, right? And, on a submarine, sometimes when, hey, an admiral's coming on board, or we're going to, bring on some guests and we want the ship to look great. We're going to do what we call field day. Everybody clean, everybody just all hands on deck, working hard to get this place looking the best we can. They'll crank the oxygen up to like 22, 23, and everybody's just going, like we're just, this is the funnest thing I've ever done kind of a thing, and so they'll do that. You can kind of manipulate it a little bit that way.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you met your wife, Maria, when you were stationed in Hawaii.
Yep.
So where do you guys meet at?
It's a funny story. So, she was on vacation with her girlfriends. There's kind of I think it was 5 of them who just all decided to go to Hawaii together. I was, me and a buddy of mine back then, I rode a motorcycle. He had a motorcycle. We would like just ride around the island and stuff like that.
Like Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah. So, yeah. Why not? Right?
You're right.
Maybe,
You're in Hawaii. Let's go.
So we had gone and got haircuts at the mall, and then normally we would head right over the island. We lived on the opposite side of the island, and there's a highway called H3 that kind of goes up through the mountains and to the other side, and that's the fastest way home. But I had said, let's we're not in a rush. Let's go the long way, go around the island through Waikiki and all that kind of stuff. So we're riding on our bikes. We're heading right down that kind of strip right there in Waikiki, right along the water. And next thing you know, we just hear all this screaming. Like, what's going on? I look back and there's a Jeep with 5 girls in it screaming at us. All right, slow up, slow up, let them catch up. And so, we kind of slow up and they catch up alongside of us. And Maria and one of her other friends jump out of the Jeep. She jumps on my bike. The other one jumps on my buddy's bike. And we just start riding, and the Jeep just following us with the other girls in it. And they're like, where are you going? We're going home. Cool, let's go, and so end up going all the way back to our house, cracking some beers, hanging out, get to know these girls. And they were, in Hawaii for about 5 or 6 more days after that. So kind of hung out, went to clubs and, all that kind of stuff. And then, they left. I thought that probably I'd never see her again. I got her number just in case, and kind of figured, all right, that's probably never see that girl again. And then I had a pre-planned visit home to Seattle, and we had these things called MAC flights, military. I don't even know what the MAC stands for. It's basically you get on a military plane and you can kind of just get on for free as a active service member. And The risk there though is it doesn't always go where you're expecting, right? So the one I got on was supposed to leave Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii and go straight to McChord Air Force Base up in Washington, but it got sidetracked and it landed in San Diego. And then they said to us, well, we're going to be stuck here a couple days before we take off again. I'm like going, oh man, I'm stuck in San Diego. And I'm like, well, that girl, she's from California, and she said she's from San Jose, San Diego. It must be kind of close, right? It's the sand, and they're got to be pretty close to each other. Let me call her up. So I call her, and she's like, yeah, it's not really close, but you can get like a $69 Southwest flight up here, and I'll pay for it. And I was like, done.
Bing.
So hopped on a Southwest flight to San Jose and hung out with her for a few days. Ended up still going back to Seattle, then came back and hung out with her for a few more days, and that was when, it was like, okay, maybe we try to keep this thing going. And I went back to Hawaii, and she was working at Applebee's at McCarthy Ranch down here in Milpitas at the time, and had a pretty good gig with her boss there where she would just kind of work and save up enough money to buy a plane ticket to Hawaii. And then she'd come and visit me and hang out until either she got sick of me or ran out of money and needed to go back. And then she'd fly back, and did that a few times off and on for a year. And then
in your 20s, that sounds like paradise.
Yeah. It was it was a good time.
So my question is, did the other guy on the other bike marry the other girl?
No, no, he didn't actually. So, and we're still friends with, she's a good friend of my wife. So she is now married and has kids and that kind of thing, but not to him.
So you were in the Navy for 6 years.
Yep.
And when you came out, like one of the things you were talking about is the person who gave you the advice to maybe look away from being a Ranger and looking at the Navy or looking at something else. It's an interesting piece of advice because I know many people, because I'm in the IT staffing business, many people who come out of the service have a really tough time getting civilian jobs. And we actually work with an organization that we sponsor called the VPMMA, and they help to sponsor. They sponsor project managers who are coming out of the service and get them into project management positions in the civilian world. And my question to you is, coming out of the service, what was your experience with finding your first civilian job?
Yeah, it wasn't that difficult for me, but what you're saying is accurate. And I think that's exactly why that guy had given me that piece of advice. I think a lot of things that people do in the military don't apply directly, and it can be challenging, I think, to get out. But basically working in the nuclear power propulsion world, not only do you kind of have those avenues available to you to just go work at a nuke plant or some other kind of power plant, but Navy nukes, they call them Navy nukes, have kind of made a name for themselves in the civilian world as well as being just really well-rounded, just solid employees who have had a lot of success. So there are a lot of companies out there who actually go looking for Navy nukes who are getting out because they've just had great success with people who have that training and skill set. And so I used a company, I was working with a couple different companies who do military placement. There's one particularly, Orion, that I worked with. And so they, what they do is they kind of do these big conferences like in embassy suites where, they'll have 100 people getting out of the military and 15 or 20 different companies looking to hire people getting out of the military. And the companies will come in and kind of give a presentation to everybody. And then you go and just interview. And so, as a candidate at one of these conferences, I'll go and interview with maybe 6 to 10 different companies, all just back to back to back to back throughout the day. Right. And I got an offer, I got a few offers, but the one that I accepted was, from a company called, Fuel Cell Energy up in Connecticut. This was, meanwhile, we were living in San Diego at the time. We had started in Hawaii. The boat changed home ports to San Diego. So I was stationed at Point Loma, submarine base in San Diego at the time. And, wasn't looking to move to Connecticut, but at the same time, the company sounded really cool. Nuclear power, you're almost, at least for sure at the beginning, going to work rotating shift work, right? Where you're kind of working that so many days of day shift, then you kind of have some days off, then you move to swing shift, have some days off, move to night shift, have some days off, and kind of keep on rotating like that. I didn't want to do that. I was kind of like, if I can avoid it, I would rather have a more stable work schedule.
Right.
So, I interviewed at some nuclear power plants. I kind of went that route, but this company, Fuel Cell, offered a little bit. It was still actually kind of rotating shift work, but it was just days and nights, and you'd go a month on of days and a month on of nights. And the schedule was actually really cool. So 5 days on, 2 days off, 2 days on, 5 days off. So every other weekend was a 5-day weekend. And I was kind of like, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Like I can, go on a little road trip, get a project at the house done, whatever. So it sounded pretty cool. And I took that job. It was sort of a hands-on technician level job, kind of commissioning these fuel cell power plants. And I enjoyed it a lot, and then basically just kind of found out that there was another company doing the same sort of thing, but they were much kind of further behind, meaning, they were just starting up and getting going, kind of, in stealth mode, in the Bay Area where Maria and her family was all from. So, ended up interviewing with them and ended up only kind of working at Fuel Cell for a year before I made the transition to move back to California. But yeah, it was not that as difficult as I think some other people have it. I mean, when I go to those hiring conferences, it was not just Navy nukes, right? It was people from all branches, and all different, rates. So, I did, kind of get to know some guys who were there who were, having a lot more struggle than I was to find a job because they were, had a job in the military where they just kind of, they did a job that didn't really apply and translate well to the civilian world. So, I think different people have different experience. I would definitely, the Navy nuclear propulsion program is one that I think if you're looking to, have that military experience, maybe get out and do something, see the world, travel, kind of do something different before you go to college or go to, get a job. It's a great one because not only just the relationships that I built during that time, but the skill set that I developed has allowed me a lot of opportunities since I got out.
And I think that a lot of what stands in people's way when they're going through any kind of transition period is the perspective that they have themselves. If you think that you're going to have a problem, you're probably going to have a problem.
Yeah, true.
It's like if you keep that positivity going on your side, then there's a lot better chance that a positive outcome is going to come your way. Now, after Fuel Cell Energy, you went to Bloom Energy, right?
Yep.
Or what became Bloom Energy. That's
right.
The stealth company you're talking about?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Talk about Bloom, because you were there for a long time. That's when I met Maria, you were at Bloom Energy.
Yeah.
And then you were there for like 13, 14 years?
14 years, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, great experience. I mean, when I got to Bloom, it was, there were maybe 60 people, in the whole company or something. At least that's kind of, I think about the number that was there. And it was, this big empty office building. We had, just kind of vast amount of space where there was no cubicles in this little kind of corner where there were some cubicles. And we had like a big sort of lab where we were developing the product. And, when I interviewed, I kind of, did the tour. I looked around and said, this is it, like these things look like some, kind of college student science project or something, like something
probably was.
Yeah. I mean, basically what it was, it was a bunch of scientists tinkering, trying to get something to work, they weren't very big. They looked kind of like the size of a small mini fridge or something, and kind of, I'm going, all right. And I was a little bit hesitant, because I was like, okay, I don't know if this company's even going to make it. They're very early stage. Luckily through the interview process, I took a few nuggets out of it that sort of made me feel really good about where the company was going and the financial backing it had and just the technology itself. And, so I kind of took the plunge. I said, I'm young, might as well, I can go into, if the company fails in a few years, I'll find something else.
Exactly.
So we did it. And, it was an amazing experience. I mean, similar thing. I started as kind of a hands-on, technician / engineer. I didn't have an engineering degree. My title was engineer, but in Silicon Valley startups, a lot of times they do that. You're a system test engineer, without an engineering degree. You're like,
right. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so, but it was like, I was helping design the thing. I was building the thing. I was starting the thing up and operating it. I'd be at night kind of like falling asleep, trying to keep the thing alive at times, stuff like that. And there's just like a few of us who knew how to do it. And, real hands-on. And then as we started to actually ramp up manufacturing and decide, okay, we've got a product, it's looking like it's going to work, seeing a market for it, we got to scale it up, we got to start manufacturing it. So I was offered, they kind of said, they came to me and said, you're the guy who's been building them and kind of knows them inside and out. Would you be willing to move from engineering to manufacturing and be a production manager and hire a team and start up an assembly line? I said, I don't know anything about that, but I'll do it. I was like, if you guys want me to do it, I'll do it. And so I did. And so I was the first production manager at Bloom. At first started with a team of like 5 or 6 people. I was only 27, 28 at the time. And it was funny, the day I got that job, there were actually some manufacturing kind of techs, temporary guys who we had doing some of the work. Maybe it was these 5 or 6 guys basically. And the day I got the job, they said, okay, you're going to start managing these guys and then hire more. One guy quit right away. He said, this guy's like 26, 27 years old. This guy's like, been working, building stuff in Silicon Valley for 20, 30 years. And he's going to start taking orders from me. Like, he was like, I'm out, So I was kind of like, I'm on my first day of the job, guys are leaving already. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know about this. But worked it out and learned manufacturing. I'm really blessed to, at similar time that we were ramping up manufacturing was when the NUMMI plant down in Fremont that built the Toyota Corollas and the Toyota Tacomas and the Pontiac Vibes, that plant was shutting down, and was kind of on the way to shutting down. And so a lot of, very, really good manufacturing experts in quality and manufacturing and supply chain and all those areas were looking to leave NUMMI, and Bloom was able to get a lot of those people to come to Bloom. So I had a lot of leadership that was trained in the Toyota production systems, worked at aircraft manufacturing places, Ford, stuff like that. So I kind of learned from some of the best in the business when it comes to lean manufacturing. And like I said, I didn't know anything at the beginning. Just kind of willing to learn, willing to work, and built a team. At the beginning, it would take us like 45 to 50 days to build one of these things that we were building. And then we got at the point where we were cranking out 16, 17 a day, at some point when, before I kind of moved on from running the assembly line. So it was kind of a pretty major ramp up in our, what you call it, tack time, kind of the cadence of producing stuff off the line. So
when you're producing that many in a day, is everything pretty automated by that time?
Some stuff. The fuel cell system is kind of it's very modular. So you've got these,
let's do this real quick.
Yeah.
There's some people out there that might not know what Bloom Energy does.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that. What exactly is the product? What's the idea behind Bloom Energy?
Yeah. So the product is a stationary hydrogen fuel cell energy system. It's basically like a little power plant that you put right at the point of use. So rather than the centralized grid that we're all used to and getting power from some power plant far away over all these transmission lines and all that, you put this little power plant that's kind of the size of a parking space, couple of parking spaces kind of out next to your building, and you actually produce the power on site. It takes natural gas, just regular natural gas that we all kind of have in our homes and whatnot. And it doesn't burn it, but it basically breaks the methane molecule down that's in natural gas and gets the hydrogen out of it, and then produces electricity through an electrochemical process, kind of a reaction that happens on the fuel cell. And so the benefits of it really is, there's several. It's very clean compared to traditional ways of making energy, like burning coal or even other gas-fired turbines and power plants. So less carbon emissions, right? Lower carbon footprint per kilowatt hour produced. So it's a cleaner technology. But from a resiliency standpoint, it's pretty awesome too, because a hurricane comes through and knocks down all those power lines and all that, and whole sections of the grid go out, right? What if you've got this thing right on site?
You're good.
Yeah, and all you really need is the pipe underground bringing it the natural gas. And in most cases, even in earthquakes, but in almost every kind of natural disaster, underground piping is much more resilient than overground electrical wires. So in situations like that, this thing's going to keep on producing energy for your building. While everything else around you is dark.
So does it create enough power to run a whole building?
Yeah, so it's very scalable. So it kind of depends. One of these systems might power an office building like this, right? If it's some of the big customers like Walmart and AT&T, like these bigger places, like a data center, with like it's consuming a ton of energy for all their servers and all that kind of stuff, might have 5, 6, 8, 10 of these things, or even more, 20 of these things. They're very modular, so we can kind of stack them all up and scale it to the size of the load of the power plant or of the customer's building. So yeah, there's anywhere from big box stores to hospitals to data centers to things like that. We have different sizes of installations, and they're bigger than what you would use for like a home. But they're, the smallest building block is kind of perfect for like an office building like this.
So then are they cost effective as far as the price of the gas going in there to break it down? Is it cost effective compared to what these companies or people are paying for getting electricity off the grid?
It depends on where you're at. So that, my time at Bloom was ultra focused on cost reduction. And it's kind of like in the energy world, it's, pennies per kilowatt hour. How much are you paying per kilowatt hour? 12 cents, 13 cents, 14 cents. So, it was all about how low can we get that number for our system. And as you get it lower and lower, you open up new markets, right? So there's places like where I grew up in Seattle, in Washington State, where they have a ton of hydroelectric, right? They got these big waterfalls and dams, and they're basically producing power for free, because as long as the river's flowing, they're making energy. So electricity is cheap, and we can't compete, or Bloom couldn't compete there. We don't sell in that state. But in California, energy is very pricey. In the Northeast, and in New York, Connecticut, these places very pricey. So it was kind of through the whole time I was there, it was all a mission to get costs down, reliability up, make the product better so that we could open up all these new markets. And so it is very competitive. And actually, here in California, it's better. I mean, it's better than the grid. It's more resilient. It's cheaper. It's cleaner. I mean, there's not a lot of reasons not to do it other than, the company has to just kind of take a plunge and invest in something that they might not be that familiar with, So.
And you probably have a whole bunch of lobbyists from other entities that are going, we don't need that energy because you've already got this energy over here. And we're making a ton of money off it. So let's just stick with the traditional stuff we're doing right now.
Yeah, that's true. So there was always a little bit of, a lot of people would think that our competition is other fuel cell companies or solar or whatnot, but it's really more like the grid, the traditional form of energy, like you said. And so, yeah, there's a local utility like PG&E here, they're not stoked that Bloom is coming in and installing all these systems everywhere and taking away their business. But the kind of the cool thing that we've seen over the last several years is that, with the wildfire situation we had a few years back, and now even companies like utilities like PG&E are kind of going, we need a new paradigm. We need to change what we're doing. All these wires going through the forests and through, towns are not great, So utilities like that are starting to actually partner with Bloom and buy the product from Bloom and go do their own installations in kind of pocketed areas. There's also things called like grid congestion, where there's like a part of the grid that just, it's, maybe there's a bunch of mountains or something. It's really hard to get, the energy from the centralized power plant way out here to that little spot. So the local utilities kind of going, we can take, this Bloom system and put a bunch of them out there in that little hard to get to area and power that community that way, instead of running a bunch of wires over the mountains and things like that. So it's been, except, we've, as the company has sort of made more inroads, the utilities are starting to kind of get on board and realize this is here to stay, and we maybe need to partner with them a little bit more and even be a customer.
Yeah, you can coexist.
Yeah, yeah.
So awesome. I'm going to say this is awesome. So you were present at the New York Stock Exchange when Bloom went public.
Yeah.
And were there for ringing the bell.
Yeah, amazing.
That had to be awesome.
It was cool. It was a really cool. You know, it was funny. My wife, Maria, you know, she used to say, "I'll bet you when Bloom." First of all, my kids, pretty much their entire lives, all they've heard for years and years. Well, when Bloom goes public, we'll be able to afford that. When Bloom goes public, we'll get the big house. When, you know, like, it was kind of like I was always there was this thing I was always talking about. The kids don't know anything about the stock market or anything, or whatever public means. They're just like, I want that money, you know. But Maria used to say, "I'll bet you when Bloom goes public, you'll get to go to New York to the stock exchange, you know, because you were one of the first employees and you did so much for that company and all this." And I was like, "Yeah, right." You know, like I would be like our C-suite and like a marketing guy or whatever, you know, but yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, when we went to do the IPO, Bloom did reach out to kind of 40 or 50 of the earliest on employees that were still there, and said, you know, you get to come with and be a part of this experience. And so, you know, they paid for me to go out there and all that. I ended up making it a family trip. I brought the whole family out, and took a little time off, and we went and did all the New York stuff with the kids. But yeah, it was cool. I mean, we went and ate breakfast. Well, the night before we ate dinner in the New York Stock Exchange. And then that morning we did breakfast. The president of the New York Stock Exchange is right there, you know, giving a speech, shaking our hands. One of our, board members is General Colin Powell. I've had the chance to meet him a few times when he's come to Bloom and done tours and things like that. So he was there, and you know, he's a guy that everybody loves. I mean, he's a great guy and really fun to be around. So he was there, you know, and yeah, we got to go out on the floor. Maria got to go out on the floor with me, so she was there with me. We you know, went out there, and it's cool. You know, we got it, and she got on TV on Squawk on the Street, you know, got her head in there, and you know, and just seeing, you know, my CEO who I, you know, had worked with all these years, and kind of, you know, trying to make this thing happen up there, ringing the bell, was a pretty cool experience. You know, I don't not many people get to do that kind of thing. And it was definitely awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now you left Bloom in early 2020. And like we said at the beginning, you joined Formfactor.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about Formfactor.
Yeah, so Formfactor is in the semiconductor space. We don't actually make the semiconductors, the chips, but we make test equipment and basically tools that the chip makers use to screen the chips that they're making, you know, their wafers. So, you know, it's a new industry for me. I didn't know a whole lot about the semiconductor space before I came into Formfactor, and I'm still learning.
Did you see a position open, or did you know somebody, or how did you find out about Formfactor?
Yeah, I just found it. Found the open position. I had kind of, you know, got to that point. I had always said with Bloom, you know, I would stick it out kind of to success or failure. And, you know, we did the IPO thing, and that was kind of a big milestone for me. And you know, I was commuting from Livermore to San Jose, which maybe some people don't know, but it's a pretty
horrible.
Yeah, it's a pretty horrible commute. I mean, I was spending, you know, 3 hours, sometimes more a day in my car, you know, to go to Bloom. And so, you know, a few years back I had said, you know, okay, the IPO, you know, the IPO's coming after that, maybe I should think. And then we did that. And then, you know, there was some other kind of goals and things I wanted to accomplish at Bloom. But, you know, the time did kind of feel right. So I said, you know, maybe this is the time to start looking. And I wasn't desperate to leave Bloom, because great company, you know, great job I had, but it was something where I said, if I can find something really perfect for me in Livermore, you know, Livermore, Pleasanton, maybe.
Yeah. So
you know,
what's your commute now?
It's about 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah. It's amazing. So you know, that was my goal. I kind of said, I'll look for something. If something comes across, I'll go and I'll explore it. If not, I'll keep working at Bloom, and we'll keep doing this thing, you know. But I found this opportunity at Formfactor. It's in manufacturing. So you know, in Bloom, I had actually moved on from manufacturing, gone into marketing and product management, program management, and all that. But, you know, sort of my my upbringing, my bread and butter at Bloom was kind of coming up through the operations group and doing all the manufacturing stuff. So I thought, maybe I'll go back into that. It was fun. Some of the best times I had there was doing that. So I kind of thought this might be, what I want to get back into. And when I saw the job at Formfactor and I saw where Formfactor was, and I did a little research on the company, and hey, the company's doing great. They're growing. The stock's price is going up. It looks people seem to like working there. It just seemed like the right thing to do. So I went ahead and moved on. It was kind of interesting, kind of tough. Think about it. It's been 14 years. I was 26 years old when I got the job at Bloom. Actually 25 years old when I got the job at Bloom. And I'd worked there for 14 years, so comfortable, kind of like, I was never going to get fired unless I stole something, kind of a thing. It was like, I could have probably stayed at Bloom for the rest of my.
You had tenure.
Yeah. And so it was, one of those things where, making that move was a little scary, but I thought someday I got to do it. And I'm, still only, 39. I'm still not that old, maybe now is the right time to kind of go make a move like this. And before I get too set in my ways and too kind of comfortable here, and then
it's an interesting thing, because I was just thinking while you're talking, when your wife and I met, we were working at a company in Pleasanton, and during that job, my wife Carissa and I moved out here to Brentwood. Mm-hmm. And the commute, I didn't think it was gonna be bad until I drove it from Brentwood to Pleasanton, which was also somewhere between an hour and 15 and an hour and 30 minutes, both ways. So, you've got anywhere between 2.5 to 3 hours a day spent in a car commuting. And one of the blessings that I've seen come out of this whole COVID 2020 thing is that whole nightmare commute thing is going to be gone for many, many people moving forward. Yeah. Because I think that people have seen, both on management and from the worker side, that we don't need to do that anymore. Yeah. And the production is really there where we don't have to. Because so many of the managers from an IT staffing perspective that I worked with, I said, hey, would you consider someone remote for this position? No, I got to have somebody here. Yeah. Doesn't exist anymore, because now they've all, the white paper is in, the facts are in, people can work remote. And it's really going to be a great thing for people moving forward, because I think one of the big blessings that have come out of 2020 and COVID is that we all get to enjoy our families a lot more than we did before. That's right. So, bless you for being able to be close to the kids, because we ain't getting that time back. Yeah. No, you're right. And that's been one of the kind of silver linings, I guess. Got to spend a lot more time at home, and the entire time my kids have been going to school, I was usually out the door early before anybody even got up, gone, coming home, at night, and everything. So I really didn't even get to kind of experience like helping the kids get ready for school, seeing them in the morning, getting to know their teacher stuff. Maria handled all that kind of stuff, and she kind of was always a lot more involved with their school and with them doing their work and stuff like that than I could ever be. And I got to experience some of that, over this last year. And it was definitely a little silver lining or blessing of this situation. And yeah, you're right. I think a lot of companies, depends on the position, but a lot of companies are going to say, hey, they're going to give people the option, or say, come in a couple days a week or whatever the case may be. And yeah, it's going to help with commutes. It's going to help with people's overall productivity, hopefully. I mean, you lose some stuff, it's great to be able to pop into a room and whiteboard something, or, walking by somebody's desk and just strike up a conversation. All of a sudden you get like an idea, so, there's going to be things that you can't really replace with Zoom and all these, teleconferencing. But, I think you're right. I think it's going to change the way people do work in the world. I think it's going to force a lot of companies to hire the remote people, because the very best of, our whole business is IT. So technologists, the very best technologists right now are just choosing to work remote. I'm only going to work remote. So it's like they're kind of taking it off the table that they're even going to go in.
Yeah.
They'll go for meetings and like travel and stuff and go in and meet face to face, but it's going to be a different world moving forward.
Yep, I think so.
So, kind of looking back over your career and looking back over your life, what was the most notable event in your whole life? We're going big here. In your whole life that led you to where you are today?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I could say going in the military, but really the funny thing is even the first few years I was in the military, I wasn't a top-notch sailor. I was a kind of an average sailor. I still had that like party mode, kind of a thing going on where I was like, okay, more concerned with like, when are we getting off so we can go to the bar, kind of a thing and everything. But then, the birth of my son, Sean, it hit me like a ton of bricks kind of a thing. It was like, okay, wake up call. All right.
I better grow up.
Yeah, it's time to be an adult, time to get my stuff together. I really did change. And I mean, even people around me who work with me said like, I never would have thought that you would be like a family guy and like, this like you're a totally different person now that you have kids. And I'm like, yeah, it's about them now. It's about Sean. It's about Maria. It's not about, just me having fun anymore. I got other responsibilities, so that was, it definitely made me really kind of step up at work, step up at home, and it didn't happen overnight. I mean, I still, had plenty of, our Maria will tell you that the early years of our marriage was just like, I mean, she was young too. We were young, both of us when we got married, and she was a party animal too. And so it was kind of like we both had a real adjustment to make. And it took some years, but it worked out, and so that was the turning point.
Like I've been told for years and years, it's about progress, not perfection.
Yeah. That's right.
So who's the person or persons in your career who gave you the most motivation or inspiration?
Yeah, so a couple of the leaders I worked with at Bloom, I guess early on I found that there was kind of a couple different types of people, leaders that I worked with. Some, just they had that true ambition to just make a name for themselves and move up and make more money and get recognized, get promoted, that kind of a thing. And then there were others who just sort of were kind of like, I'm just going to do my job and do what I think is right. And they didn't say the right things in meetings just to kind of get, hoping that would kind of move them up. They would just say what was real and true and speak, kind of call out when something was wrong. Hey, this is not the right thing for us to be doing as a company. And I always respected that a lot, and there was a couple, a few guys I worked with like that who I started to kind of model my behavior after that of like, just do what's right. Just do the right thing. Try to, don't worry about what upper management thinks about what I'm doing. And, sometimes that could go wrong, but I mean, I think if you're really keeping the mindset of, I'm going to do what I believe is right, then all the rest kind of takes care of itself. And so I kind of saw that, if I modeled my behavior after those leaders, good things just kept happening. Like I said, I didn't know anything about, first of all, I didn't know anything about fuel cells. Then I didn't know anything about manufacturing. I didn't know much about any of these jobs that I was doing. It was kind of just like, I'm learning on the fly, which is I'm very thankful to Bloom for basically giving me an education in how to work and how to, and so many things, and paying me to learn it, at the same time. But I didn't, I wasn't really self-confident at the beginning, that I knew how to do any of these things well, so I was just like, I'm just going to keep on trying to do what I feel is right. And next thing you know, I'm getting promotions, I'm getting good raises, I'm getting recognized, and I'm going, so I guess this is the way to do it, just, try to be completely honest and, not ambitious in the way that I'm just trying to make it up the chain, make it up the ladder, I guess, kind of a thing. Just put my nose down and do the job, and good things will happen. So, there's a few guys who kind of, I think I saw that early on, and I'm glad that those are the guys I chose to model my behavior after instead of the other guys,
I think the guys you were talking about at the beginning who are ambitious just for climbing up the ladder or just for brown nosing or just for whatever. That's actually what kind of changed with me when I read the quote that this podcast is based off of. It says that true ambition is not what we thought it was. True ambition is the profound desire to live usefully and walk humbly under the grace of God.
Yeah.
So true ambition is what you're talking about with the guys that you kind of modeled your career after. Just doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And then God, the universe, divine, whatever, delivers for you and says, you did the right thing. You're now rewarded.
Yeah.
Those people who are climbing the ladder and doing whatever they need to for ambition's sake, some of them get ahead, some of them don't. But I think that the things you're talking about are right on the money. It's like, if I just go do the next right thing for the right reason, I'm going to feel better no matter what. And most likely I'm going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
So love what you said. So you're a leader. You've been a leader for a long time. How do you motivate your team now under the new normal of COVID? How do you motivate people to meet goals, get things done nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, so at Formfactor, COVID hasn't impacted us as much as at a lot of other companies. I mean, we're considered an essential business. We're running the 24/7 manufacturing floor. I'm going into work every day. So COVID hasn't changed things a ton for us. We did shut down for a few weeks and before we kind of got everything back up and going again. But, I'm in there face to face with the crew most of the time now.
So let me ask you a question about that. When you guys shut down right at the beginning of COVID, was there an, oh shit, what's going to happen here?
Yeah,
you had just started the job, right?
I had just started the job. Yeah, I'd only been there for a month when it all happened, and so yeah, it was interesting. I mean, it happened really quickly too. I mean, I think probably for everybody, right? But it was like you're hearing about this thing.
We said, holy, what are we going to do?
Right, you're hearing about this thing in China, and then you're kind of seeing, okay, there's a few cases here and there, and then next thing you know, it's like, hey, within a matter of a couple of days, it was like everything's going to shut down, and I'm okay, so yeah, we were a little bit worried, wondering what's going on. My boss, great guy. I mean, he assured me like, hey, don't worry. I know you're new, but we're not going to fire you or anything. You're just hang in there, figure out how to get stuff done from home while we all figure this thing out. And so we all kind of just, shifted to Skype meetings and Zoom and all that kind of stuff. And we're getting things done. Now at the time I wasn't actually running all the manufacturing. I had a very small engineering team. And it was a couple months into COVID that I took over the large manufacturing team. But those are the guys you worry about, the ones who, their job, there's nothing they can do on Zoom or from home. They got to come in and build these things and test things and stuff. So it's, really those are the people who you worry about and who are really impacted by it. And having run crews like that before and having a couple guys who were in that bucket, of like, are we just going to keep paying these guys to do nothing forever? I was worried, for them more than for myself. And luckily it didn't last long. I mean, it was kind of a couple of weeks. We started to kind of bring the line back up in a limited fashion. And then we sort of got back to full speed within a few more weeks after that. And then, a month after that or so, I'm going back into the office every day. So there were some people who had to, use all their PTO and borrow PTO and, they were getting the unemployment checks and all that. And, I was lucky to not have to worry about that too much because I could do a lot of my job remotely. But motivation wise, I've always been kind of the same. I lead by transparency. I guess my thing is kind of like I said before, I'm not a good liar. I'm not a good bullshitter. I just tell it straight. I as a leader, sometimes, you don't want to give every little bit of information to your team, but I've always believed give them as much information as I can kind of legally give, in my position to them, because the more they know, and the more they know I'm being straight with them about what's going on, the more they're going to want to work for me, and kind of rally behind whatever I'm asking them to do. So I've always been very transparent, and I continue to kind of lead that way at Formfactor. Kind of talk. It's like titles and all that kind of stuff's out the door. It's not like, oh, I'm a director and you're a technician on the floor, and it's like, hey, we're a bunch of dudes, we just got to get a job done, kind of a thing. And I think that talking to them like that and being clear that, like, I'm not hiding anything from you, I'm not telling you to do something I wouldn't do or telling you to do something I don't believe in, has always worked for me to kind of get really strong teams. I mean, I mentioned earlier, right, that first job at Bloom where the guy left on the day one, right? Well, the other guys who didn't leave, some of those guys are my best friends now. I was their boss. They were kind of like, oh, this like young kid's gonna be my boss now. And at first they were probably nervous. I was nervous, but like, our little crew, and even as it grew, was tight, and I know those guys would run through a wall for me, if I needed them to. And
because you do the same thing for them.
Exactly. So we were all in it together. And so it's kind of, just being incredibly honest and transparent with the people that I lead, has always worked for me. And I'm going to try to continue to do that, and I think it builds great teams. I also coach football, right, at the high school. And I've seen the same thing with the kids, right? I mean, they want, they're motivated and they rally around a coach who they can relate with, who speaks to them as people and individuals, not just kind of, a kid that doesn't understand, right? Like I try to make sure that, they know, like, I was a kid and didn't understand it at some point either. So if I'm telling you this, it's because I learned it the hard way or whatever the case may be. And I'll tell them the stories about how I screwed up many, many times. I'm not perfect. And that, I think, seems to really kind of motivate the kids as well.
Well, that's great. Amen to everything you just said, because I agree wholeheartedly. Honesty, willingness, it'll gain your respect, as a manager and as a coworker.
Yeah.
So what is a good book that you've read lately, or if you've read in a recent past, that you would advise others to read?
Yeah. So there's two. So one I read kind of about a year ago, is the Vanishing American Adult by Ben Sasse, who's a senator, U.S. senator. He, it's an interesting book. I mean, when I first, I heard about it on, I think I was, in my commute, right? I was listening to NPR or something like that and heard a little report about it. And the title stood out to me and the concept stood out to me, The Vanishing American Adult. I thought, yeah, that's happening, like even my generation, like in the next generation, it's even more, but I guess I'm Generation X at the very end of it. I think maybe right on the border, whatever the next one after that is. But
yeah,
he talks a lot in the book about how, in the early days of America, right, it was kind of like so much of the economy was farming based, right, and things like that. So it was just, kids had to work. They had to work with their parent. They had to work with their dad. They were learning a skill. They were learning how to work at a young age, because they were needed to. And that's how family farms, family businesses worked and grew. But as time has gone on and the economy has changed and all those kind of things, there's a lot less of that. There's a lot, there's not as much need for kids to be helping out and working or at least doing hard work. It really almost, as a parent, you got to think about, like, what's a good chore I can come up with for my kids so we can learn how to do something, Taking
Bullshit.
The garbage out's too
My
easy.
kid's doing something.
Yeah, no.
I when you told me about this book, there's another book that a friend of mine turned me on to, which is called Hillbilly Elegy, and it's along the same lines as this, where it's just like everything's changing so much, and the American history of the last 50 years has changed so much that people don't know what to do. Yeah. This Hillbilly Elegy is based out of Ohio, and it's all about the Midwest. And they've lost so much there that all these people are doing meth, drinking Mountain Dew, and just wasting the day away.
Right.
because they have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to that like vanishing American ethics.
Yeah.
You know, because when you and I grew up, totally different deal. I was in a small town in Illinois. You better go to work, boy.
Yeah.
You know, you want to make some money? Get your ass to work, you know.
Yeah.
So I baled hay. I did whatever I could to make some money.
Yeah.
You know, and that has led me to exactly sitting here talking to you today.
Yeah.
Because I was a kid who had to go to work and learn how to work.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to try to instill in my boy, he's only 2 years old right now, but he better get a job.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, and you know, I grew up in a big city. My parents were divorced. They were teachers. So it wasn't like we had a family business or something that I could work. But I mean, me and my buddies were pushing a lawnmower all around Seattle, you know, knocking on doors, asking to mow lawns, right? Like trying to figure out how to make some money here.
And you had to negotiate with the people on how much they were going to pay you to mow the lawn.
That's right. And you know, it's funny when I remember a moment that has stuck in my mind forever about that. And I think kind of along the lines of what you just said, it's helped. It's sort of molded the way it changed my work ethic. It improved my work ethic, which is, you know, you'd go knock on these doors, you mow lawns, and $10, $20, $15, whatever. And, you know, probably 80% of the time, the people don't even come and inspect if you did a good job or not. They just give you the money and you move on, you know, and go knock on another door, you know. But I did my great aunt's yard one time, and she's an amazing woman, you know, amazing life she's had, but she can be difficult sometimes, you know. And I remember she came out and walked the whole yard with me, and well, what, that blade of grass right there, you know, that little weed, you missed that, and you're gonna have to come back tomorrow and finish. And I'm going, I could have mowed 5 lawns, you know, and made a bunch of money, you know, and then I come back the next day and she still wasn't satisfied with the work that I had done, you know, mowing her lawn. It was a 3-day job. It was a big yard, but it was a 3-day job because she wanted every single thing perfect, you know, and I was pissed, and I was just going like, I don't want to go back. I told my mom, I'm not going to go back and finish it tomorrow. And she's like, you better go back, you know? And so I got the job done, but I have always remembered that, you know, and now like when my son's mowing the lawn, I'm like, you know, that line isn't straight or whatever, you know, and it made me realize, you know, that you're not going to always get rewarded just for showing up. You got to actually execute. You got to actually perform at a high level. You know, you have to get the job done to the way that your customer expects you to get it done. You know,
right.
And so in anything I do, I think it's stuck with me a little bit, you know, and I've always, and so, you know, even after that, mowing lawns, right? It's like, you know, I knew that 80-90% of the people weren't going to check, but all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I want to know that I did the best I could do. I want to know I didn't miss anything. I want every line to be straight. I want to take pride in my work and be proud of the job when I'm done with it, you know, and that has stuck with me. And I try to teach that to my kids, and, you know, it's a hard thing to learn because kids just want to get the job done, get paid, and like move on, you know. And it's like, and my son, he'll get mad when I'm like, you know, are you really proud of what you did? You know, Dad, cool. You know, and it's like, well, you know, you're gonna see later in life that, you know, you want to take pride in your work, and you're gonna feel better about it when you do that, you know. So
there's a lot of lessons there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pride in a job well done.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't even remember the jobs that aren't well done.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
You know, so I appreciate you being here today. I'm going to end the podcast the same way we end every podcast. So you've been through a lot. You've learned a lot. So knowing what you know now, being through the things you've been through, what is your true ambition for 2 things? What's your true ambition in your personal life? And what is your true ambition moving forward in your career?
Yeah, I'll start, I guess, with career first. I mean, you know, I just want to continue to know that I have done my best. I know that I've never done anything where I think I am the best. There's always somebody who can do it better. But I want to know that I at least did the best I could do, you know? And so as I continue to grow as a leader at Formfactor and down the road, whatever happens, I just want to know that I can feel like I have put my all into it and did my best. And I would like to know that the people who work for me and with me feel that way too. And you know, I don't want to be that dirtbag, I guess, kind of guy who just kind of comes in and you know, sort of, you know, leaves early, shows up late, leaves early, doesn't work hard. You know, I like to work hard, and I like the people around me to feel like, you know, that they're thankful that I'm working that hard. Personally, in my personal life, you know, it's probably more in my spiritual growth. You know, I did not grow up a Christian. I didn't grow up really with much going to church. We had it, you know, my parents kind of took us to church and stuff when we were little. Sort of they were feeling it out. Is this something we want to do? And then we stopped, and now they're definitely both atheists and not very spiritual in that way. You know, is maybe Maria grew up in the church, and she was always trying to get me to go to a church, and we'd go, and I was like, I don't know, you know, I don't know, I don't like the way they're kind of cramming this one subject down my throat, you know, and I don't know if I agree with that, you know, this and that. But we found a great church, you know, 6-7 years ago, and I got, you know, really into it, and I really over this last 6-7 years have been trying to grow spiritually, and to the point where I'm doing more in my life, you know, for God, not just for me and my family, and kind of putting Him first, and it's tough. It's when you don't grow up with that, it's really hard to make that be a centerpiece of your life, and you know, maybe make sacrifices, you know, in order to kind of say what, you know, what would God want me to do here? What should I do for? You know, if I do this, am I doing it for Him, or am I doing it for me, kind of a thing? And maybe I shouldn't do that if it's just for me. Maybe I shouldn't, you know, buy that thing, or what, you know. So I think that's where I want to grow in my personal life, and I really want, you know, my kids to. I want that, you know. I'm a big believer that they need to make their own decisions and sort of go and explore and have their own adventure, write their own book, sort of a thing, and maybe, you know, stumble and fall a few times to kind of, you know, learn from it and get better. But I hope that they'll, as they kind of leave the nest over the next few years, at least the older ones, and that they'll kind of they'll say, oh, at least, you know, Dad had a spiritual foundation and was grounded in a certain way, that they'll kind of take with them and carry that through life. So it kind of helps guide them.
Love it. The teacher will appear when the student is ready. Yeah. You know, or willing. And, you know, what you just said about the kids traveling and learning, I think that was a big part of the book that you had said. But Sassy, is that his name?
Yeah, right.
That, you know, he talked about going out and traveling all over Europe, I think, on a shoestring budget, just to prove he could do it and see the whole world. Yep. So, I appreciate everything you've talked about today. It's been very interesting. I knew nothing about nuclear submarines, and now I know just a little bit more. Not much more, but a little bit more, and I appreciate you talking about it. Yeah. So give your best to the family, and 2021, baby. It's got to be better than 2020.
Here we go.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
The True Ambition podcast is brought to you by IT Avalon. For more information and links to other episodes, please visit www.trueambition.org. Now, go find your true ambition.
And I'll be your protector.